Hey everyone, it's Nathan. Welcome to Hail. If you're new to my channel, I post a lot of movie content, whether that's the Criterion collection, the Disney movies, superhero movies, really just anything related to movies I talk about. And so make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can be in the loop of what movies I post. And if you're really desperate to watch content from me, hit the notification bell too. It'll just give you reminders of when I post videos or something like that. I don't know. July is creeping up on us, and that means the Barnes & Noble 50% off sale for the Criterion collection. At least hopefully it happens. I don't really know at this point with COVID-19, but we're keeping our fingers crossed. This video is going to be really simple. I would just want to recommend some movies that you should pick up in the July sale if you're trying to think of like what movies you should pick up. And before I get started, normally in these kind of videos, I would like to show you the physical copies of the Criterions that I have in my collection, but because I'm away from home, I'm in college right now, unfortunately, I don't have my physical media with me, and so I'll just be including a picture of what the Criterion looks like on the screen. So these first few movies, I actually don't even own in my own collection, but the reason is I just saw them and I want to own them in my collection, so I'm actually planning on getting these next ones I talk about. The first one being Fail Safe. I mentioned this in my video of Criterions I watched in May. It's directed by Sidney Lumet and it stars Henry Fonda. It's basically about America accidentally setting off an atomic bomb that's set to explode in Russia, and yeah, it's them dealing with that. And so you can imagine it's a very suspenseful, intense movie. The first like 20-30 minutes is all build up, but once you get to that part where the atomic bomb is set off and like it's going, it's awful. I think I mentioned this in my last video too, but it honestly feels like a 2-hour Twilight Zone episode. And that's really just because of Sidney Lumet's style of filming, the angles that he uses, the shadowing he uses with the lighting. All of it feels like a Twilight Zone episode, and Twilight Zone is my favorite TV show of all time. So if you're a fan of 12 Angry Men, The Twilight Zone, Sidney Lumet's work in general, then I highly recommend picking up Failsafe. Next one I want to talk about is Harold and Maude. This is a super weird movie, but that's exactly why I love it. When the movie started, I was getting some serious Better Off Dead vibes, the one with John Cusack, and The Graduate vibes. Just someone who's kind of like an introvert, doesn't want to be around anyone, but is also trying to kill himself. But as the movie progressed, it became its own movie. It was no longer just a combination of Better Off Dead and The Graduate. It's kind of a strange plot. It's about a younger man falling in love with an older woman, but both of them are very, they don't care what people think, and putting them together, it's a great story. The next movie I want to talk about is actually a movie I checked out in my 24-hour movie marathon, and it is In the Heat of the Night. In the Heat of the Night was much better than I expected it to be. I didn't expect it to be a bad movie at all. I was expecting a good movie. It turned out to be a great movie. It won Best Picture. It stars Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger, and both of them give amazing performances. Rod Steiger actually won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for his role. And unfortunately, it's a relevant movie right now. And I say unfortunately because we shouldn't be dealing with racism today. This should be a thing of the past. This should be a thing of history. But clearly it's in our present day history today. And so it's a relevant movie. It's a sad movie, but the acting is amazing and the story is good too. So it mixes crime and solving a mystery. And so add that all together with two great performances from our leads and you get a great movie. And yes, there are some characters that you want to punch in the face. The next movie I want to recommend you get is one that I've recommended in previous Criterion videos, but I haven't really emphasized why I think you should get it. That is The Bridge. It's a movie that is very underrated, and I actually think I found out about it from Stephanie over at Movie Chatter. Stephanie, if you don't own this movie, I'm giving you a random shout out. If you do own it, great. I think I found out about this movie from you. But this movie is about several young men who have to go out to war. In fact, it takes place at the end of World War II, except the interesting thing about this movie is that it's from Germany's perspective. Why did I point to myself when I said that? And so you see all these young teenage boys who want to fight for their country, they want to have justice for Germany, and what follows is just a very real and sad war film. If I were to describe this movie, I would call it innocent, sad, unfair, honestly, and eerie. Just so many combinations of genres, but the crazy thing is the movie is based on a true story and no one has heard this story before. In fact, the end of the movie says that like this is a true story, and so I highly recommend you buy this because when I bought this, I watched it, and right after I finished the movie, I turned on the supplements and I started watching behind the scenes and interviews, and I highly recommend you do that because the supplements for this movie are great. The next movie I want to talk about is one that I picked up in the November sale, I think, and that is Brief Encounter. Now this movie is actually kind of a messed up plot. It definitely has to do with a love affair, but it's such an old movie and the language they use is so like proper and innocent that I just can't help loving it. There's this woman who's married to a man and their relationship isn't very strong. She meets a doctor at a train station, and what starts out as like a mild visit turns into like a loving relationship. And when I said that they use kind of like this language that's just kind of funny to hear nowadays, what I mean by that is she'll be talking about this relationship and she'll call it like a violent relationship. And it's like, you guys haven't even done anything. It shows how big of a deal an affair was back in these times. And obviously an affair is a big deal today too. I'm not justifying an affair at all, but back then an affair was a super big deal. I'm just gonna be quiet. The last movie I'm gonna recommend in this video is IKIRU, directed by Akira Kurosawa. So I watched this movie last summer for the first time, and it was a movie that resonated with me. I watched it in a span of 2 days actually, and whether you decide to watch it in one sitting or 2 days, for my schedule, it just worked better to watch in 2 days. I think regardless, you will find that this is an absolutely beautiful movie. Oh, and by the way, the reason I watched it in 2 days is because it's like 2.5 hours long, so it is kind of a long movie. The movie follows a man who discovers that he has cancer, I believe it is, and basically it's what he's going to do with his final days. It's a heartbreaker, and there's one scene in this movie that it's one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. In fact, a little sneak peek here, I want to make a video where I talk about my favorite movie scenes of all time. I guarantee you that this scene from IKIRU will make that list. And if you're wondering what scene I'm talking about, it's actually the scene where he's sitting on the swing in the Criterion cover. So once you get to that scene in the movie, just tell me that's not one of the greatest scenes of all time. Like, it is such a good scene. So that's gonna do it for this video. If you guys wanna check out more Criterion videos, make sure to click one of the videos right here to check out other Criterion content that I released. I sure hope that Barnes & Noble has a sale this July. Keep it in your prayers. Keep your fingers crossed. Whatever you believe in, ask them to have the sale. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.